everybody. This is Angela, and you're listening to Five Picks and a Chick featuring El Gato. This is the show that gives you 5 NFL picks for people who love football and friendly wagering. Well, El Gato, week 1 is in the books.
It's in the books, and it was an exciting week, starting with that Chiefs Ravens game. Boy, what a way to start the NFL season, and then it carried on over, to the NFL Sunday. Had a lot of exciting games, big comeback for some teams such as the Bills, such as the Dolphins. Had to make some comeback victories, but here we are. We're here to recap week 1 and then make some good picks here NFL week 2. Let's see what happens.
Yep. Speaking of comebacks, some of those comebacks caused me to lose my pick and I think for you to win. So last week I went 2 wins, 3 losses, but you went 4 wins, 1 loss. So that's really good. That's a really good start, especially when we said week 1 is kind of tough.
Yeah, it is tough because some of the players, I didn't even, to my fault in researching, I didn't even know they were, on a certain team, and the depth chart is difficult to gauge on, how the reserves come in to give some rest to the first teamers. Yes, difficult, but our records for the week turned out the way they did, and yeah, I know you had a couple of games that you mentioned earlier on the comebacks that were just they were ugly comeback losses for you,
Yeah.
but that's the way the ball turns, right? Sometimes.
That's football. That is football. Well, my number 1 pick is going to be Vikings getting 5 versus San Francisco 49ers. The Niners are on a short week. They had a Monday night win. McCaffrey, their running back, is still questionable. He's a little banged up. Sam Darnold actually looked really good in last week's game. And in this game, he's facing his former team. So that might give him a little boost to do very well. Minnesota last year beat the Niners in Minnesota. So they can beat the Niners. I think this is going to be a close game. Vikings upset the Niners. Give me the home dog Vikings. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I like that pick. I like the Vikings at +5, and just to recap last week's game, Vikings and Giants, just briefly. Darnold played a pretty good game. He played clean, without an interception, and he didn't cause any damage to his team, and the run game was solid with Aaron Jones. He almost got 100 yards. Defensively, the Giants were putting pressure. The Vikings were putting pressure on Jones. Even caused him to throw, I believe, an errant interception. And I like the way the Vikings played. They had a solid win. And the 49ers, of course, just completely dismantled the Jets on Monday night, rushing, passing, defensively. I mean, they just stuck it to the Jets pretty good. I'm going to look at the matchups here. With McCaffrey out, to your point earlier, that's big. He's out with that foot injury, Achilles injury. For a top-notch running back to have that injury, no telling when he'll be back. But they've got a solid backup, as we saw Monday night on what that running back did to the Jets. But the matchup with Darnold and Purdy, I'm going to take that as an even matchup. Running backs, pretty even as well. And with the wide receiver group, I want to give the edge to the 49ers. They just have a little bit more playmakers. But the Vikings being at home, I think the game plan for the Vikings should be, in my opinion, is to, stop that run game, first of all, and then put Purdy in some uncomfortable 3rd and long situations. And maybe he throws up that INT, changes field position for the Vikings. And, that's all the Vikings need as far as gaining an edge on the 49ers. To your point, last year they beat them. They can prove they can beat them, and that's because they had, in my view, maybe a poorer team last year. This year they look pretty solid. I like the Vikings at +5 at home.
My second pick is going to be Rams getting a point at the Arizona Cardinals. Both teams actually played very well last week, and they were playing against some pretty tough opponents. Unfortunately, both of them came up short. Rams and Stafford always play Arizona Cardinals pretty tough. So Cardinals were winning the game against Buffalo and they blew it. Rams have won 13 of the last 15 meetings. Go Rams. What are your thoughts on this game?
You know what? I like the Rams also, especially the way they played the Lions in Detroit. To your point, Stafford, I mean, he had a really good game. He completed a lot of passes for a lot of yards. The Rams were just a few plays away from stealing that victory in Detroit. The Lions got, to me, really lucky and escaped that one. Puka being injured for the year, I think, with a knee injury is going to be a big loss for Stafford, but and for the Rams. But it's next man up for the Rams. Defensively, they held the lines as best they could. They just ran out of gas in that overtime victory. The Rams are going to need to shore up that defensive line moving forward. To your point, also the Cardinals. I mean, they came out fast against the Bills. The Bills had to make a tremendous comeback in that second half just to win that game. And that's because they were at home. So Arizona, they showed that they can put up some points, but defensively, when you've got a team down, you got to come up with some stops. Unfortunately, they in that second half against the Bills, they couldn't come up with enough stops to steal that victory. So, looking at the matchups, Stafford versus Kyler, I'm going to go with Stafford. He has, I think, a better control of the quarterback position. He can hit, all the passes. He hit, I don't know, about 13 different wide receivers in that Monday night game. Excuse me, that game against the Lions. Defensively, like I mentioned earlier, they're gonna have to shore up that defensive line if they're gonna, move forward and be able to stop teams. But both teams are division. They're both 0-1. Neither one of them wants to go 0-2. This is going to be a very close game. But looking at how the Rams played against Lions, which is, a lot of people have them as going very deep in the playoffs. I'm going to go with the Rams at +1 in a close game.
Yeah, it's going to be a good division rivalry game. You have a third pick for us?
I do. I have a couple of picks. In fact, 3 picks. I'm going to go Bears at Texans, and I'm going to go with the Texans at -6.5. And just to recap the Bears game against the Titans last week. I mean, dang, the Bears were just, I don't know. They had a rookie quarterback. I'll just say that. He didn't perform too well. Had less than 100 yards in passing. Rushing was less than 100 yards. They had total offense of less than 170, and they still win that game when they were down 17-3 at halftime. The Titans had all the opportunity to seal that deal, but I guess they just didn't want to win it. But that's the way football goes. The Bears did come through with an INT on a bad pass by Levis, and then they blocked a punt for a touchdown. And that's how you steal a game on the road, playing as poorly as they did. Texans, on the other hand, they went on the road, played a division rival, played a team that they faced off in the playoffs last year. And CJ, that's my guy, came through again, had a solid day passing the ball, threw for a bunch of yards. I think for me, the surprising thing was their rushing game with Mix. I mean, he was just tearing through that Colts defense, and extended drives, made third down conversions. If it not had been for Richardson for the Colts, making some incredible long passes there in the fourth quarter to come back, all it would have taken was a few batted balls or pass breakups, and that game would have been over early in the fourth quarter. But it went late into the fourth quarter. But you know what? A good team on the road. Talking about the Texans, they pulled it off, and I expect them to do the same thing against the Bears. I think they're going to hold Caleb to minimum yardage. I think that Texans defense is going to play solid at home. It's going to be a full touchdown almost, 6.5. But I'll take the Texans. I think they're going to score a lot of points and keep Bears to the minimum.
Yeah, I'm going with the Texans as well, getting 6 or giving 6.5. Bears could not have played any worse last week, but they won. They came out on top. Somehow they won. Williams had a welcome to the NFL type of game last week. He only threw for 94 yards. Stroud, however, I really like Stroud. Let me just say that.
Yeah.
But Stroud, however, he picked up right where he left off last season. The offense had 417 total yards. I love D'Amico Ryans as a head coach. He's proven that he is pretty good head coach. So give me
Yep.
the Texans.
Yeah, I like that. Thanks.
How about a fourth pick?
Well, I've got a matchup of Bills at Miami Dolphins. That's tonight's game. And what I'm going to do on this one, Angela, I'm going to go with the over 48. And I'm going to just slightly recap that Bills Arizona game. They scored a bunch of points each team. Of course, the Bills in that second half pulled it off. And, the Bills, they're not the same team that they were, 2 or 3 years ago when they had a lot of playmakers. It seems like this year, they're going to struggle a little bit, I think, in the run game. Seems like they don't have a number one wide receiver like they have had the last couple of years. But when you have Josh Allen as quarterback, he can win games by himself or just will the team to win. Miami, on the other hand, they started slow last week against the Jaguars. They had to make a comeback win in that second half. They completely shut down the Jags in that second half. Defensively, I'm talking about Miami. And, they pulled it off. This game, I think, is going to be the matchup Tua versus Allen. I think both of them are going to throw for a bunch of yards. That run game that Miami has is pretty impressive. They got a couple of game breakers that can bust through that line and make explosive plays. This game, I think, is going to be an offensive game where both teams can, go up and down the field, and that's why I'm going to pick the over 48. I'm expecting, a 30 to 27 game, 30 to 24 game, something like that.
Well, I am going to go with the Bills getting 2.5 in Miami. Bills are the king of the AFC East until they're dethroned. I know you said that they kind of have, some issues or not the same team as they used to be, but they still are a very good team. Josh Allen owns the Dolphins. Allen is 6-1 head to head against Tua. I know both teams did struggle last week, but they both did win. This game is tonight and it's on Amazon Prime. So if you don't have Amazon Prime, go and get it real quick so you can watch the game. So give me the Bills plus 2.5.
You know what, Angela? I didn't know Josh was 6-0 against Tua. That's got to be in
Six
Tua's
and
head.
one. 6-1.
6-1. Still, that's got to be in Tua's head somehow, where he needs to win. And at some point, a quarterback on the opposing team, when you lost that many times to an opposing quarterback, somehow they've got to make it happen. But you're right.
You
Until they
know,
knock off the Bills are the king of that division.
yeah, but the AFC East. And it always happens in football. There's always one team, they can be like really good, but there's always one team that they just can't beat, no matter how good they are. It's just something, I don't know if it's mental or what, but
Like the Ravens. Like the Ravens.
we won't go there.
We won't go there. I do have another pick.
Yeah, give me your fifth pick.
I'm going to go with the Chargers at Carolina. Chargers are at -6. They have a new head coach, Jim Harbaugh. They've got a solid quarterback in Herbert. Carolina, on the other hand, recapping their last week's game against the Saints, man, they were just, I don't know, they looked awful. How they got to that point in game one to play that poorly, having the whole summer of summer camp, summer training, the whole summer to game plan for week one, and they come out with that. It was pretty amazing. But the Saints did what they had to do against Carolina, and they showed a bunch of weaknesses that this Carolina team has. And Bryce Young, the quarterback for Carolina, this is year 2 for him. I mean, he just has to start performing somehow, some way. Throwing for less than 125, 135 in an NFL game is just not going to cut it. And he's got to do better for being the number one pick. And just think just think Carolina passed up on CJ Stroud because the rumors were that Young had more upside, if you can believe that. That may be the bust pick of the decade, in my opinion. But anyway,
Yeah.
if we get back to this Chargers game, uh, I think the Chargers just have too much on the passing side. They've got a good rushing game, as they demonstrated last week against the Raiders, and Dobbins going over 100 yards and getting some crucial third down conversions. Defensively, I mean, Carolina showed that they couldn't stop anything or anyone against the Saints, and the Chargers came through and stopping the Raiders. Allowed the minimum points in that second half for that victory. So I'm going to go with the Chargers. They look to be the stronger team. I know it's only week 2, and Carolina is at home, but I'm going to go with the better quarterback matchup in this game, and that's Herbert and the Chargers, and Chargers -6.
Well, I'm going to go with the under. It's 39.5. Harbaugh is known for running the ball and playing a solid defense. And we know when you run the ball, it kind of eats up some clock. Bryce Young and the Panthers haven't figured out how to score. Chargers could blow them out and they would still go under in this game. So Panthers are just plain and simple not good. Maybe that changes with their new head coach, Dave Canales, but we'll see. Time will tell, I guess. So, another thing, Panthers are without their best defensive player in Derek Brown. So that's going to have an effect on the game. So give me the under in this game.
I like that under. Yeah, that makes sense.
All right,
with the team that has, excuse me, Angela, with the team that has difficulty in scoring, getting in the end zone. You're right. Even a blowout victory by the Chargers would keep that under 40. So yeah, that's a good pick. I like that.
So you have any final thoughts for us, El Gato?
No, I don't. I was hoping Mr. Parlay, one of our subscribers and listeners, would have sent in a nice parlay. He sent a competitive one last week. We lost that one by a toe, right? Literally by a toe. And I was hoping he would have sent one in, but we don't have a parlay or a surprise pick this week. So all I've got is what I presented, and that's it.
Let me ask you then, since we didn't get Mr. Parlay's 2-teamer, what would you put as a 2-teamer parlay?
With what we have here?
Whatever.
I would pick, well, I'll go with a 5 picks and a chick 2-game parlay. I would go with Texans -6.5 and Vikings +5.
Yeah, I like that. I would probably go with those same 2 teams. I think those are the strongest picks that we have, but I like all of our picks, but I think those are some pretty strong picks there.
All right, there you have it.
Well, if you have made it to this point in our podcast, we just want to thank you for listening. Be sure to tell your friends about us. Also hit the subscribe and like button on our YouTube channel at 5 Picks and a Chick. You can also find us wherever you get your favorite podcast. Make sure to join us next week. And as always, thank you to El Gato for being part of 5 Picks and a Chick. 1, 2, 3, bet.
All right.